While the European Union debates the accession of Ukraine and other countries, on the other side of the world, the Association of Southeastern Asian Nations, or ASEAN, is quietly expanding, with its 11th member, Timor-Leste, set to join later this year, and other nearby countries being floated for membership too. So in this video, we're going to explain what ASEAN is, the role it plays on the world stage, why it's expanding, and the challenges that it faces going forwards. If you're interested in the political alliances and groupings which shape our world, then you might enjoy our poster, Every Alliance Explained. It shows, in slightly confusing detail, all of the world's major alliances and how different countries link together. Check out the poster by clicking the link in the description. So, what is ASEAN? ASEAN is a 10, soon to be 11 member regional bloc, comprising Brunei, Cambodia, Indonesia, Laos, Malaysia, Myanmar, the Philippines, Singapore, Thailand and Vietnam. It aims to accelerate economic growth, drive cooperation and promote peace and security in Southeast Asia. ASEAN is big. It covers nearly 4.5 million kilometres squared, has a total population of nearly 680 million people, and a combined GDP of $3.8 trillion. ASEAN was founded in 1967 by Indonesia, Malaysia, the Philippines, Singapore and Thailand, which were all concerned about the spread of communism. However, membership surged through the 1990s as relative peace came to Southeast Asia. Now, it's tempting to liken ASEAN to the European Union, but the two bodies are pretty different, as the EU, a supranational entity, is far more integrated than ASEAN, which is an intergovernmental organisation. ASEAN is also a lot more economically, politically and culturally diverse. It has, for example, Singapore, among the world's wealthiest and most developed countries, and Myanmar, among the world's poorest. Politically speaking, ASEAN's membership range from flawed democracies to absolute monarchies and one-party states. Nevertheless, over the years the bloc has come closer together and scored some significant achievements. In 1995, its members signed a treaty to create a nuclear weapons-free zone. In the aftermath of the 1997 Asian financial crisis, it launched a regional currency swap arrangement, and it adopted the ASEAN Charter in 2007, which established the group's legal and institutional framework. Intra-ASEAN tariffs have been virtually eliminated, and ASEAN also spearheaded the creation of the massive RCEP Free Trade Agreement, comprising ASEAN's 10 members, plus China, South Korea, Japan, Australia, and New Zealand. So, where does ASEAN struggle, and what challenges does it face? Well, in perhaps the two most significant threats to the region's peace and security, the Myanmar civil war and the South China Sea dispute, ASEAN remains divided and has struggled to chart a way through. ASEAN member Myanmar spiralled into civil war in 2021 after the military overthrew the elected government. Later that year, ASEAN members adopted the 5-point consensus, which called for an immediate ceasefire and constructive dialogue among all parties to seek a peaceful solution. This looks great on paper, but years later the war is still raging, and the implementation of the 5-point consensus has clearly been a failure. ASEAN hasn't been able to be more assertive during the crisis, in part because one of the bloc's cornerstones is the principle of non-interference, and because it's been divided on the issue. Indonesia, Malaysia and Singapore, for example, have taken a much harder line on the military regime, while others like Cambodia, Laos and Thailand have advocated for a softer approach. ASEAN faces a major challenge later this year in deciding on a response to the elections planned by the regime that critics say is a sham aimed at legitimising continued military rule. Meanwhile, there are divisions over the handling of the dispute in the South China Sea, where China's expansive maritime claims overlap with those of 4 ASEAN members. There have been more than 2 decades of as-yet inconclusive negotiations between ASEAN and China over a South China Sea Code of Conduct, aimed at managing disputes and lessening tensions. Some ASEAN members, like the Philippines and Vietnam, which have the most intense disputed claims with China, want a legally enforceable code of conduct, while other less involved and more China-aligned countries like Cambodia and Laos are more hesitant. But all of that aside, let's take a look at ASEAN's enlargement. More than a quarter of a century after it last expanded, Timor-Leste will become ASEAN's 11th member in October 2025, meaning the bloc will finally include every Southeast Asian nation. For context, Timor-Leste, which shares the island of Timor with Indonesia, is a former Portuguese colony of nearly 1.4 million people that spent the last quarter of the 20th century under a brutal Indonesian occupation, before eventually winning its independence in 2002. Timor-Leste's path into ASEAN has been a long one. It was recognised as an ASEAN observer upon independence in 2002. In 2011 it applied for full membership, in 2022 the bloc agreed to its accession in principle, and earlier this year it agreed to fully admit Timor-Leste at the 47th ASEAN Summit in October. The long path to accession reflects the fact that Timor-Leste had to work hard to demonstrate that it could meet the conditions of membership across its three pillars: political security, economic and socio-cultural. Much like in EU enlargement debates, the delay has also been caused by the concerns of various other members worried about the impact of letting in a comparatively poorer and less developed country. In an expression of frustration, Timor-Leste's president said in 2022 that it was easier to enter heaven than ASEAN. But having overcome the obstacles, both Timor-Leste and ASEAN can look forward to the benefits of accession. Despite impressive progress since independence, Timor-Leste still has a lot that needs improvement. A significant chunk of its population is below the poverty line, it lacks economic diversification, it's heavily reliant on oil revenues, and it faces a looming budgetary crisis after decades of unsustainable withdrawals from its sovereign fund. So, accession to ASEAN is a big deal. It allows Timor-Leste to benefit from ASEAN's free trade agreements, give it the opportunity to become part of the bloc's integrated value chains, benefit from its integrated funds, and enhance its appeal to outside investment. ASEAN, meanwhile, will be truly region-wide and gain some much-needed democratic legitimacy, as Timor-Leste is consistently ranked as the most free and democratic nation in Southeast Asia. In fact, Freedom House lists it as the only fully free country in the region. ASEAN also has the chance to play a more involved role in Timor-Leste's development going forward, and benefits from its geostrategic location along maritime trade routes between Southeast Asia and the Pacific. Timor-Leste's accession does pose challenges though, not least that adding an 11th member, and one with strong democratic credentials, makes the bloc's consensus-driven approach just that little bit harder, and Timor-Leste's relatively low GDP per capita heightens ASEAN's so-called developmental divide. Nevertheless, will Timor-Leste's accession be the beginning of a new wave of enlargement? Well, at the ASEAN Summit earlier this year, Indonesia's president said he supported Papua New Guinea's bid to join the bloc, and Bangladesh has also been canvassing support for joining. However, there are plenty of hurdles for both, not least the fact that accession must be approved by all member states, and the criteria limits membership only to Southeast Asian nations, which Papua New Guinea and Bangladesh are not, so some amending would be necessary. As such, the prospect of further enlargement anytime soon looks slim. The next issue of our magazine, Too Long, is about to publish, and this time it's all about the end of the American order. In that section, we unpack everything from the collapse of the democratic norms in the US to the decline in American soft power, and if the US can maintain its dominance in energy and technology. We also discuss the people who could pick up the reins from the US, like if China, Europe, or even a new multipolar order could replace America. This magazine is our longest ever, coming in at 76 pages, all full of our best journalism as well as thought-through analysis. That goes beyond the US too, with more than half of the magazine dedicated to other topics, from Germany's new focus on military might, the offshoring of migrants around the world, how Nigel Farage could become Britain's next Prime Minister, or our section where we ask a handful of experts what's really driving anti-establishment sentiment around the world. You can pre-order a copy of Too Long from our website right now, or you can subscribe to make sure you never miss an issue going forward. And if you do, you'll also get 20% off every copy as long as you're subscribed. Plus, just this week, if you use code AmericanOrder, you'll get an additional 20% off any subscription, bringing the price down to as little as £6.40. So pre-order your copy now to get yourself all of that extra content and support all the journalism that we do at TLDR every day.